If you've ever built a GPT, this is the next level. Agent Builder gives you control over how your AI thinks, not just what it says. OpenAI has just released one of its most powerful tools yet, Agent Builder. This isn't your standard ChatGPT prompt where you drop in a few instructions and hope for the best. Agent Builder is a visual drag and drop system that allows you to design complete AI workflows step by step with logic, memory, and structure. Think of it like going from writing a single sentence to engineering an entire conversation system, one that can reason, fetch data, and even connect to other tools, files, or APIs. If you've ever used platforms like Make.com, you'll feel right at home here, but the big difference is this one is native to OpenAI, much more user-friendly, which means every node, every decision, and every reasoning step is happening right inside the OpenAI ecosystem, and that gives you more control, more reliability, and production-level precision for real-world applications, whether you're building a customer support agent or an internal knowledge base or a client-specific research system. In this walkthrough, I'll take you through the Agent Builder interface, from signing in to exploring existing examples to building your first workflow from those examples. We won't be diving too much in depth with widgets or playgrounds at all. In this specific video, I want us to mainly focus on the fundamentals. But that being said, there's going to be up and coming videos around how does this widget functionality with Playground compare to platforms like Replit? Can you build something on OpenAI as the back end and then run it into your Replit infrastructure for the front end or for your client experiences? That will all be coming up in future videos. For now, we'll focus on the core experience on how to think about nodes, logic, and workflows so that you can start designing your own intelligent systems confidently. And if you're a founder or business owner who wants to make AI simple to actually integrate it into your operations, marketing, or client systems, then I would highly advise you allowing yourself to check out our AI school community. The link is down in the descriptions below. Inside, we discuss everything AI agent and AI no-code related, from prompt frameworks to full-stack apps and automation builds, so you can go from learning to potentially launching fast. Okay, so once you've signed into platform.openai.com, you'll land on this screen. So what you want to do is you want to go to Agent Builder here on the left. Then once you are in Agent Builder, this is what you'll see. Now, we'll jump into these examples shortly. What I do want to show you is what it looks like to create. So every workflow starts with a few core blocks. That's how the agent knows where to begin, what to do, and when to stop. Then you have the tools. So these are things the agent can use. Then you have the logic. This is how the agents decide what to do next. And then you've also got the data, which helps keep track of information. Okay, so looking at it here, you can see at the bottom, we've got the pan view. So you can either press V or P, depending on your mouse. You can choose to use two fingers if you're on Apple, etc. You wouldn't necessarily have to worry about the shortcuts. But just to show you, to pan, you press P. This helps you to navigate through here. And then in order to select, you can just press V. Let's start with the core agents. This is the thinking brain of the workflow. You can drop this node when you want the model to reason, generate text, make decisions, or respond. Now, you can obviously choose different models here depending on your budget, your APIs, and what's required from this agent. And you can also give the agents a system prompt. Now, what's nice is you can also add context if you want to the specific system. Then you go into the reasoning effort. How much do you want it to reason, right? And then do you want any tools in here? So we've got ChatKit right now, but you can plug in a MCP server. By the way, guys, I will make a video exactly on how you can plug in a lot more applications with a universal MCP tool that will help to bring all of that together, as currently right now, OpenAI only allowed certain partners for us to access with their MCP service. You can essentially create your own as well if you want, but I'll share something with you guys shortly. Looking at file search, you can also add that in there. You can also say that the agent needs to be able to do web search, but also interpret code. And then you can play around with the function. You can customize that if you want. choose the output format. Now, if you want to keep it as text, you can keep it as text. If you want to change the output format to JSON, you can do that. And also now we have widgets, which is fantastic, right? So you can build an interface, and that interface you can either share with a client, etc., and it can all be run from this automation. Then when we move into the model parameters, you've got the velocity. Do you want to set that as high, medium, low? You can work on the summary. You can also allow the ChatKit to display a response in chat. You can show search sources, and you can, for example, say, look, if there's an error, let the AI agent override that, and then write conversation history. This is just to ensure that there's memory, which is ideal. Now, taking that into consideration, you can then bring in end node. So this is essentially once you've gone through your entire workflow and you want your agent process to end, this will essentially mark the end of the workflow. So whatever reaches this node is what the agent outputs back to the user or next system. You can have multiple end nodes if you want, for example, one for success and one for failure if you want, but note, think of this strictly as a node for your canvas. Think of this entire setup here, all of these nodes, and you can use it to add internal comments or explanations inside the workflow. It doesn't do anything functionally, it's purely for the organization. Let's jump into the tools section. So first, let's start with file search. You can create your vector store inside of OpenAI if you choose to. You can also set the parameters and the results. But what the file search does is it essentially allows the agent to look up information inside of uploaded documents. So let's say, for example, you have a customer support bot or a customer support agent, and you need some information that needs to be retrieved. The agent searches through the stored files, finds relevant chunks, and uses them to answer questions. Perfect for knowledge bases, SOPs, or internal training docs as well. Then we move into guardrails. Now, looking at the guardrails here, this block essentially adds safety checks and policy filters. You can set up rules inside of this block or inside of this node to detect or block outputs. Like, for example, potential identifiable information, or if you want to ensure that users can't break it, or ensure that there's very limited hallucination based on how you set this up with your vector store or outputs, etc. And also you can set the parameters to continue on error. So that is extremely important to take into consideration. And then we move into the MCP. This connects the agent to external APIs or custom functions. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It is the way to let the agent call for external systems like databases, CRMs, or other apps. For example, you can create an MCP tool for Slack, for Notion, or a custom API endpoint. And when you look at it here, these are the current partners that OpenAI has added, and I'm sure they will also continue to add more. But I mean, you can connect this API as an example and have access to 8,000 plus automations with other apps, and you can look at what OpenAI has here and then other developers, what they've added. But what I want to show you is if you create an account with Rube, this is extremely important. They've got MCPs set up already with multiple different apps. And taking that into consideration, you can also go to the marketplace and look at multiple different apps that you want to enable. And then basically, if you want to enable that, you just create that. You enable the app, use your own developer console. You can use a barrier token. You can identify all of the specifics that you want. You can call the token just test. You can basically call it what you want, and you can paste your API token in here. Now, what you have to do is you just go in here, you paste in the link, you label what the server is, the description, the key, and the access token. Very simple. I'll create a in-depth walkthrough video of how to set that up correctly, but that essentially is what the MCP does. So let's start with the logic node. So logic nodes is essentially where you design decision making and loops. For example, the if this then that part becomes quite helpful when you need to branch certain decisions. So the workflow checks a condition. If it's true, it goes one way. If it's false, it goes another. For example, if the confidence score is below 6, ask for clarification. or return the answer, right? And you can add that all in here, and you can add the conditions, and you can add more, etc. Then we go over to while. Now, this creates a loop that repeats until a condition is met. So for example, we can perhaps bring that inside here, and it will stay inside while we can move that around. This is useful for agents that need to retry something or iterate through lists or check progresses. This is very good for summarizing until all files are processed, as an example, if you have a RAG infrastructure where you need to grab your knowledge base with information. Then we have the user approval. It's quite self-explanatory. This just puts a human in the loop, essentially, and this pauses the workflow until it waits for the human to approve or reject or edit that workflow before continuing. This is ideal for compliance or sensitive types of output or anything that needs a review step. Now, let's go to the final component here, which is data. So these help the agent store, change, and reformat data as it works. So as you can see, the transform node is used to clean, reformat, and manipulate data, right? So you can add different schemas, you can change certain values, you can input values, you can add more. There's quite a bit here that you can do. And what is helpful is you can transform long meeting nodes into bullet points, as an example. Then we have the set state lets you store or update variables that the agent can use later. This is very, very important to identify. So you've got string variables, number, boolean, object, list. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but this will help significantly when you think of saving memory for this workflow run, like setting a confidence score above, let's say, confidence score is 0. State is how the agent keeps track of what's already happened or what data is carrying forward. All right, just to give you a quick rundown again, guys. So the core is to give your workflow structure. The tools is to give it power. The logic is to give it decision making, and the data is to give it memory. So together, that's how your agent becomes more than just a chatbot. It's now a small automation system. So let's look at the workflows that OpenAI has given us already. Let's create a new project and let's do an internal knowledge assistant. So you can see the node starts with the input. It queries to rewrite. Here's some notes if you want to context. So this rewrites the user's question to be more specific and relevant to the knowledge base. Then this nodes determine whether the question should be used in a Q&A or fact-finding process. Then you have the logic, right? So based on the question asked, triage a particular agent. So now you can figure out, should this be Q&A, should this be fact-finding, or should this be something else? Then it goes into sub-workflows to handle specialized requests. As an example, the internal Q&A agent, the external fact-finding agent, and the general agent. So when you look at it, the internal agent is to answer users' questions based on the knowledge that you have at hand. This could be files or web search. Be concise, using bullet points and summarizing the answer from top to bottom. Now, again, if this is something we would use internally, I would also add here file search and upload the files here and bring it into the process. Then you have the external fact-finding component here, where you explore external information using the tools you have and analyze any relevant data, checking the work. Make sure to output a concise answer followed by a summarized bullet point of supporting evidence. Right, so this is basically what the workflow looks like. We can preview that as well. So we can ask the workflow, where would you suggest do I add my data memory when building out a knowledge base for our client work? And now the agent will run. It starts to query. It's going through the reasoning. It's refining the question. And now it's creating an output based on what it's finding. As you can see on the left as well, it's checking the facts. And then we can see basically everything it gave. It's finished, and now we can go through this and identify if this is exactly what we look for. If not, then we can just continue to communicate with the agent. Now, if you have internal documentation already added, the answers would be much more specific. But that's just an example. Now let's publish this and call this client knowledge base. I'll just say internal team. Once that is published, you can either move that into the agent's SDK. And again, guys, you can utilize chat for that. You can add a domain. There's quite a bit that you can utilize this for. What you can also do is you can go into evaluate. And this is where you can look at the workflow, how long the workflow takes, essentially how you manage your agents. All right, guys, I'm noticing that OpenAI is slowly rolling out the playground and widget feature for its users. So once we receive that, we'll also create some content around that. One thing I do want to mention is you can take this code and you can build this over on a platform like Replit. I'll also create a video for you guys on that. There you have it, guys. So that's a full walkthrough of OpenAI's Agent Builder, at least for the first release. We focused today on understanding the workflow canvas, the core nodes, and how to structure an intelligent system. In the upcoming videos, I'll show you how to take this further, exploring the widgets, the playground, and some real-world automations that makes these agents come alive inside of your business. If this walkthrough helped you, leave a comment or share what you'd like me to cover next. And remember, AI doesn't have to feel complicated. With the right structure and a bit of clarity, you can make it work for you and your business. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll take this agent from the canvas into the real world. See you there.